when you're working. You're a family. Y'all stay in that fucking house and y'all stack your chips. That should be the whole thing. But we have gotten into it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Oh, you gotta get the hell up out of here. That right there, that has done a lot of destruction because what happens is a lot of those young ladies that are getting kicked out, they're going to rely on men. They're going to rely on men. They're going to rely on other people to survive. They haven't been trained to function in this world, and all of a sudden you're going to kick them out the house. Where do they go? They go to the welfare rolls. They go to the pimps. They start selling their boxes. They start doing all kind of things to make money. And so, yeah, we should be in the crib. And I know some families that are like that. I know Jamaican families, I know Italian families. Let me tell you something. Everybody's in the house, if it's big enough. They got their own space. They go out, they work, they stack their money. And then when they get with the person they're going to be with, now they're living in the home with an education. They're living with money in the bank. And they're going to get money when they get married because everybody got money around them. And so they're starting off their lives with good credit, a couple of $100,000 work experience, and so they are more likely to have a productive life. Like, stop kicking your kids out the house like that. Like, that's crazy. Y'all know that generation, man. You gotta get the hell up out of here. I don't know what you're like. Nah, you ain't even.
I think it comes from. I think it comes from. It was a certain generation and some black families where they came from like these large families, Robert. And I think once they got out of that, when they got individualized and single, that's when that mentality kind of started. But I think we're starting to revert back to shacking up was a big thing in the black community. You know, I remember my grandparents, right? My aunts, it was like 7 of them. They was all living in the same house. My grandparent had a huge house, and everybody was living in the same house. You know, stacking chips. They're making money.
Stack up your chips, man. Like my daughter, rest in peace. I never, ever told my daughter no shit. Like, I ain't never tell my daughter you got to get up out of here. I never told her no shit like that. I'm glad she.
But that's the thing, Robert. So some people say, Robert, some people say we already shacked up. We don't need to go back. You know what I mean? Upward mobility, some people call it. So
I don't think you should shack up with somebody if you really don't like them. Like I personally would never live with a woman again in my life. I've been married, but I mean, I'm talking about like shack.
I meant family shack up. I'm talking about family shack up.
Yeah, fuck, man, y'all better come together, cause yo, man, you could get a home, right? Maybe you get 4 bedrooms or whatever, 5 bedrooms, and yo, man, and y'all live, man, and y'all enjoy it. Yo, stack your fucking money. To be sending each other out here in a deficit. We're sending our kids out here and they're in a deficit. Yeah, they should work. Yeah, they should go away for college. Yeah, they should do all the things, but they should not feel that sense of insecurity. You know, should they come into some financial trouble? Like, yo, I'm going home. I'm a grown ass man. I made quite a bit of money in my life. There are times where I went back home merely to just be in the presence of my mother, just kind of regroup and recalibrate.
Robert and Omar, I have a comment about what you were saying to Omar's point about the families. So a lot of times for black families, the living together, because I think like we black people have just historically been multi-generational families. Families have always lived together. Just in the mid 20th century, the end of the 20th century, you got that thing where people would move out. And it's as Omar was talking about, like the families got smaller. Because in the early part of the 20th century, black families were bigger. Like parents had 8, 9 kids. You know, around the 70s, you saw that shrinkage with parents having fewer children. And so getting the kid out of the house was also an economic thing, because once you had secured that kid, they send him to college or whatever, then that kid goes out, makes a life, and then that kid can contribute to the rearing of the other kids who are in the home. So the moving out of the home wasn't so much, we want you out of this house, right? It was always, okay, you gotta, as in the words of Outkast, you gotta get out and get something, right? Because there was like a, right, so there was that collective sort of responsibility. Now, in the post-soul generation, that changed because as Black people entered the middle class and had more means, the attitude of get your own, get yourself, make it, it was a different level of security that parents wanted for their kids. It's like, you have to be able to take care of yourself when I'm not here. So now you gotta go make a living. So it wasn't always about the sort of harshness of getting the kids away from the family. And that, so there's just like there's an extra dynamic to it.
Thank you for that. I mean, we got this several ways, right? Like you're saying, we got this several ways. But yeah, get your ass out to contribute back to the house. Like if we just, we gotta come up with catchy names for this shit, right? Because I mean, we're discussing this in real time. And yeah, I always wondered, like, how do you kick your kid out? Like, my mother never kicked me out. I left home extremely early because I was a dad and all of that, and I had to figure some things out, right? But it wasn't because me and my mother were beefing. Instead, quite the contrary. I was an enterprising young man. Like, I mean, and I can't compare myself to today's 18, 19-year-old. I just can't do that because growing up, we were raised to basically think a certain way because mom worked that night, and you know what, she had a system, and you know what, you got your keys, you were told what your responsibilities were. Like, she just laid it on the line. So we got incorporated into being responsible at a very young age because mom was working. Before mom went to her 4 o'clock shift, she had already prepared our dinner. So our instructions: you come home, you do your homework first, go take your plate off the oven, heat it up, whatever. After you do that, then you can go outside for a certain amount of time. I'm going to call you at this time to make sure y'all in the house. You iron your clothes. Like, we had a whole fucking regimen, man. I didn't leave my whole house because there was conflict. I left my house because I wanted to branch out into the world. I was a young dad. I always loved living in the city, all that type of shit. I had a great job. I was being trained. Like, I was lined up. And I went to school while I was working. Right now, in reverse, if I was in a different situation, I probably wouldn't have gone to a HBC. I would have gone to an Ivy League. Like I was an Ivy Leaguer, so to speak. But I didn't have that pedigree around me. I wasn't in that network. I wasn't in that circle. So I had to figure it out on my own, right? And not everybody, and a lot of us are like that. Like a lot of us had to figure some shit out on our own. But if I had the network, the mentorship, and all of that, I had the street dudes. We had the street dudes on lock. But I didn't have any adult males around me who were well educated, so on and so forth, that I looked up to. That it just wasn't that. Those dudes wasn't in my neighborhood.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you this though, Robert. Like I'm gonna tell you this. Like when I first moved to LA, how many people? That was like over 30, and they was like living with their parents, and they was like this girl was Salvadorian, and I'm like, hold up, how do you get old living with your parents? But as time progressed and different things like that, and plus this conversation, stuff like that, it's because a lot of people, like she always said, my parents want me to leave the house when I'm married. My parents want me to leave when I have credit and I have a nice savings account. They don't want me to struggling and stuff like that. So they rather for me, they paid for my school, they did this, and they prefer me to stay at home. Even though we don't live so great.
A lot of foreigners are like that, though.
Exactly.
I mean,
I didn't realize
like that. Somebody in the Matrix.
Yeah, Patty.
Our matriarchal system is the family system that always works, regardless. It always works. And when we return to the value system, then we become more productive as individual families. And then as a melanated,
You in the Matrix.
Ambassador, you might need to go out and come back.
Go ahead and see what you're about to say.
Ambassador, okay, let me see if I can mute him. Let me see, I'm gonna try to mute him.
I muted him.
I can't mute. I can't.
Oh, no, I
mute him.
can't.
Yeah, he gotta go out and come back. But yeah, Patty, I was gonna say that, like, a lot of this stuff about people living at home with their parents, like, a lot of that stuff is cultural. because when you go to these countries, it's like, so I know a lot about the Italians and like the French, right? So a lot of times you go to these countries and they have the kids like living at home. The kid will be like and men and women. They'll be, you gotta go on mute. I don't know what you chewing. What's going on?
That's me. That's not me.
Okay, I just knew that. So they'll live at home, and a lot of times it has to do with expenses. So they live at home so that they can build up their finances, support the family,
100%.
So it's right. So it's not. So there's a lot of cultural things. There are ideas about family that are feeding in. Yeah, Robert, you got something in your background.
No, that's
That
me.
are
I'm
feeding.
good. Yeah.
They're feeding into this thing of when we see them living at home. It's not like they have some better like financial ethic or something. It's just a cultural thing, and the results of that may prove to be advantageous. But
You know it's crazy too, Dr. AG? They'll even let you stay at home with your wife so you can stay together.
Yeah.
And it's Americans that be on this getting the hell up out my house at 18.
And I think also in some of these other countries, age is not I guess highlighted as much as in America, right? Because we're a very ageist society, right? You can have a foreign student, he's a freshman at 31 years old, he's walking around like he's an 18-year-old, and I think that's part of it too. And when it comes to black families, I think a lot of it is class too, right? I think the more black folks earn, some of their children tend to stay a little longer in the household. 26, 27 years old. The daughter staying at 30 and stuff like that. And I think it's a class thing too in there when it comes to the black family.
Yeah. I got a buddy who lives in Sag Harbor, New York, right? My boy. Shout out to my boy.
Oh, I love Sag. We used to go there when I was a kid.
Now, and his family owns beach out there. His history, oh my God. And so the point is, they are some of the most humblest black people I know on the planet Earth, because the way they got their wealth handed down to them, the way they move about the world, the way they've shown up, it's so rare. It's just so rare. Like on the beach out there, and they pass down their generational wealth, the right way. I would say, I would never kick a child out. Like I got my 12-year-old, 14-year-old grandsons, right? And since they were children, I've engaged with them a certain way. And so now, as the oldest one is figuring out what he wants to do and whatnot, and he likes food, he likes to cook. We taught him how to cook very, very early, very, very early. And so he liked that. And so I asked him what he wanted to do, this, that, and the third, and this is what he chose. So now I'm in the process in real time, having conversations. So I'll say stuff to him like, okay, well, I don't think you should have a brick and mortar because that's not a good business model. I said you should look to have a dope food truck. And so now we're talking about that. The simple conversation. I'm like, well, what's going to be on your menu? And then we had that conversation. I'm like, you need a secret sauce, right? Okay, now he's doing the secret sauce. He's in the house, putting together the mayo and the ketchup, whatever, and trying to do taste tests with his brothers and sisters and shit like that. The point that I'm making is, when we have these type of conversations with our children when they're young, they are introduced to concepts that will help them take care of themselves for the rest of their lives. They shouldn't have to wait until they go to school or wait in college and all of these things. These are conversations that need to be had around the food table, man. How many times do people sit down with their families at the table and eat and exchange ideas? We don't even do that like we used to.
So, Robert, I have a question. Is there a difference between, and I'm gonna just own up front, it's the language for me. So, is there a difference between kicking your kids out and encouraging your kids to gain that next level of independence, which is living on your own?
I love this question.
Because I think Because I think like when we say they kicking the kids out, I don't know that they're kicking them out, because at some point I think independence has to come, and independence can be graduated. So like I tell students sometimes, like, now you're in college, this is a different level of independence. You're away from your parents, you're not living under like your parents' discipline and rules, right? So that's something that you're learning. You don't have a bell ringing to tell you when class is over. Nobody's checking your homework every day. So that's a different level of self-management that you're learning. But your environment is still a little controlled when you're in university, because there is somebody who's like making the rules, and they are kind of telling you what you can do. If you live in the dorm, there are rules. So you're graduating to a level of autonomy. And so I see the parents having that role too. It's not just like they kicking their kids out to the street. It's like, okay, I've given you these tools, now go out and use them. You know, I don't know, that language of kicking out is difficult for me.
First of all, I'm glad you asked that question. And hell yeah, there's a difference. I think that you getting out of here usually occurs from people that live in the projects and at the lower part of the economic spectrum. It's those same parents that are creating these kids that can't take care of themselves are the same parents trying to kick their kids out, literally. And you are right. We want our kids to be independent as F, right? As fuck, right? Absolutely. But like I said, each child is different. And as parents, I'm going to parent my kids according to their skill sets and all of that kind of thing. And you know which ones need real discipline. You know which ones are disciplined. Like I said, each kid is different. You are absolutely right. We should definitely push them to be independent, self-sufficient. Absolutely. But we should give them the tools to do so. Yeah, they get absolutely. And so it's the way it's done. So to your point, yeah, our kids should not be like thinking they're just gonna live life and not be responsible at all. And I'm a disciplinarian. I'm all those things. But to your point, it has to be done the right way. So I agree with you, and you know, wholly. And I'm glad you put that on the floor, actually. So I just was a little harsh when I said kick people out, because, you know, do y'all know how many times I've gotten a phone from people that's in my program? I've gotten calls from them. You know, hey, I'm praying my mother and I got into it. She just kicked me out the house. I don't know what to do. Do you know a lot? It happens a lot. These kids are like 17 years old, 16 years old. These kids are like getting kicked out of the house and beefing with their parents and all that, and they have nowhere to go. So yeah. So that's what I was alluding to. So I had to be a little harsh.
Yeah, but I don't think most black families are like that, though, Robert. You know what I mean?
We're coming out of that era now. I think it was that it was taken off.
We got a lot of parents like that. They're phasing out of that. Probably not today, because a lot of people went through that. They don't want their kids going through that. But shit.
Like I said, it's like
Are these calculus equations on your PTR?
In some way, or they, you know, people do kick their kids out when they find out their kids are gay or lesbian, you know, LGBT, they kick the kids out. But just like kicking the kids out, oh, it's time for you to move, kick them out. I don't know that that's true. Now, we can talk about the underlying reasons why people kick them out, like when they kick out their LGBTQ kids, or they kick out the rebellious kids. We can talk about that, because I think that is a real and ever increasing phenomenon with Black people, which I find disheartening. But just kicking your kids to the street, I don't think Black people doing that to the degree that people make it seem.
And the thing is, like, people that find excuses to kick them out, they ain't just kicking them out. It'll be whatever reason, like, oh, he didn't wash dishes, get out. He didn't do this, get out. It's like stuff like that. And my situation was I was working 2 jobs. So I was working a job, I always worked double shifts. And she wanted me to cut the grass. She said, you don't cut the grass by Saturday, get the fuck out of my house. And my job put me on a double shift for the whole week. And she's like, well, you better make time. And I'm like, well, I don't have time. She's like, get the fuck out of the house.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Get the fuck up out of the house!
Sorry,
So,
Get the fuck up out
like,
of the house!
I understand my mom, she does not have the mindset
That's
of
what my mom
like,
told me.
trying to
Get the
like,
fuck
for
up out
example,
the
I got
house!
a settlement of $10,000. And her position was, well, you're 18, you're supposed to go spend it, have fun with it. And I'm like, what to do? The school, they gave me no check. They said that they want to line me up with a financial advisor to figure out how to invest it. Financial advisors, all they want to do is screw you and all that other shit like that. But it was like no real like support when it comes to doing better. You feel me? So my thing is like a lot of things I had to learn my own. My mom's raised me how to be a hustler. I can tell you that. And I mean legally, if I ever thought about selling drugs, like just doing this and that. But yeah.
Yeah, same here. My mother definitely gave me my work ethic, and so just as a gifted kid, I was a gifted kid in school. To be honest with you, my mother didn't make a lot of school events at all. Like I literally had to learn how to deal with that on my own. When I went to junior high school, I had a culture shock because I went to a junior high school. I was placed in the gifted class right down that track, and so I'm coming from the hood, right? And I think maybe it was me and maybe 2 other blacks in that class. And these kids, I went in an Italian neighborhood. So at the end of the day, I'm going back, to my place. We had a dope. I lived in the duplex. Like our shit was fly. But the point is, I'm going back to a neighborhood that was quite different to the neighborhood that they were going back to. These Italian kids are going back to, at that case, they had big homes, they had, family support, they had all the things. I'm going back to taking care of myself, making sure my brothers and sisters are not eat, making sure we follow the rules. Like we just had a different experience altogether. And so, the point is that imagine gifted kids being in a class with other gifted kids, yet their actual lifestyles are quite different. All the kids are very equally gifted and talented, but the reality that they got to deal with, it impacts your ability to study, to stay focused, all those things. So, that was
one
my,
of
that
the
was
things. So one of the things I think, like, that I've been thinking about, especially contemplating this bill, right? The passage of this bill, is what is that going to do to how we operate, like, in our families? Because it seems so just like my sort of cursory and quick thinking seems that, like the bill itself, which seems to be directing us toward a previous economic time, which would then create a social time and cultural time that we knew before. It seems like it's going to require that we go back to some of the strategies we had in the mid 20th century, in the mid to early 20th century, where we're going to have to do more sort of community support systems. And I just wonder if the community we have now is capable of revising that or reinvigorating that to sustain us through what are bound to be very devastating let me just finish. Very devastating economic times, right? Like during the period of like the Great Depression, during the period of the 1950s, Black people had very strong community networks and community systems where we supported each other and we did our best to make sure that we kept everybody sort of stable, right? And I don't know, I just wonder if we're able to recreate those institutions to the degree that we need them, with the economic pressures that living under this new tax plan is going to create. I don't know. I'm really concerned about that.
Hey, Dr. H, I think it's still there, but it doesn't look like the past, though, right? I'm gonna give you a small little anecdotal example, right? Back in the day, used to knock on the door and say, Miss Sally, can I get some sugar? Times was hard. You maybe ain't had no sugar in the house, right? Like I said, it's a class thing. Not all black folks, right? But I think today it may appear as, look, can I get a $40 cash app? A $45 cash app from the network of friends, right? Where money is circulating. I see my little sister, she's like 35, her friends, right? And how they network. I'm like, yo, they're really community. Even though it's in their way, like it's kind of a younger way, it's not as
That's interesting.
I was used to be. Let's use that on a smaller level, Dr. A.J. We can macro the situation, but I think these younger folks do have like networks that they go to. Like I hear them when they support these certain businesses, or so-and-so has the hookup and stuff like that. So I think we're going to be all right, Dr. AJ. That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to be more positive.
Oh no, that's interesting, Omar, because that's something that I thought of, that I noticed, like especially when I was on Twitter, where people would post things and they would say, I need money to, I got a person who's going through a situation. Can we crowdfund? I think they called it, and they would ask people for money, and then people would give money, and then those were people who were also like in need of things, but they were willing to give like a $10 or $20. Okay, thanks for bringing that back to my mind. I had forgotten about that because I was thinking more large scale.
So I had a person recently doing the susu, right? Remember the susu back in the days, like people.
Yeah.
And this person, let me tell you what happened with this person. This person, this person was running a susu. They was having a cash deposited into their freaking checking account, and they got flagged for that activity. And I'm laughing because I'm like, why would you do a susu? Like susus were in cash, but these, this person, she didn't know like that. Anything over $9,999, it creates a flag. And she didn't know this, and like for us, we're like, how could you not know that? But yeah, so the point is that susu was a way of people pooling their money together and then paying it out accordingly, so that when you get your payout, that was your big thing. And it also gave people discipline, because they knew you got 100 other people in the susu, and you didn't want to be that person that didn't put up your money at the end of the week or whatever. You were supposed to pick it up, put it up. But this person was doing all that cash, all that activity on the books, and got crazy.
I also think, like, back to kind of Omar's point, like, you gotta have, and maybe like with the susu too, you have to have like that level of trust in people, right? That
Yeah, you frustrated. Yeah. It's okay. Like, we frustrated.
No, I'm not frustrated. I'm just trying to. I have like 35 pieces I'm trying to put together coherently. So you have to have like a level of trust that you can invest with these people, right? And I just see us living in a climate where we are not very trusting of each other, and where individualism, that thing about what's good for me and mine is what I'm gonna. Robert, you got background. That thing of what's good for me and mine has taken over, and so there's more competition. There's a more competitive aspect now than then. Yeah, I'm just trying to balance it all, like in my head. And I think a lot of being hopeful is good. I
I'm gonna say this like I'm gonna say this is like I remember going to neighborhoods where I don't think it was a poor thing. It was like if you didn't, some people didn't like going to the store, asking your neighbor next door, "Hey, can I see your broom? Hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar?"
Right.
It's no community. I would say the only neighborhood I've been to so far, not living, but just being there doing some stuff, was in Roswell, Georgia, where it's like it felt like one big community and people outside doing things compared to other neighborhoods that you see. It's not a color thing. I just think it's just more of like a people thing now. People are not community no more.
You know, I feel that even when we feel like, oh, back in the day it was tighter, we all of us, and me included, we wait till the last second to decide when to make the big build, to make the big move. And we got to stop waiting to the last second. That's what gets us with the big ugly bills. You know, we're waiting for community. I'm proud of everything we've accomplished thus far with this small space and other spaces adjacent. I feel we just need to keep putting wind in each other's sails, mentally wise, and then fiscal shall follow, including government programs. But an example is
the country is completely
I had a
broke.
church recently called the police, set the alarm off to get the police called on me. While my car was broken down, I'm trying to charge my battery. Meanwhile, there's other people that aren't necessarily documented. Nobody wants to know their name. So they pick and choose. They pick and choose who they let into the inner circle. And we do the same. But the good news is that there's more pie than pie chart, and there's more community than ever trying to break bread. So I see it all over. And I actually hit somebody up on Clubhouse recently, a good brother of mine that had to borrow $50. And thank God that I established that relationship, that trust and rapport with them during COVID, because my own father isn't there. So it is what it is, folks.
Like we got neighborhood block parties. I don't know if they still do that. And I know that some ghetto stuff called Hood Day, but do people even have like neighborhood block parties anymore, or just that one person on the block that barbecues every weekend and people hang out?
People still have. I'm in Philly. We have to be the king of block parties. People still have block parties.
On the East
Coast.
On the East Coast, we ain't got that.
But y'all cities are designed different, though. Why would y'all have a block party in Los Angeles? Like,
we should be. Why would
I'm saying y'all would have it in a park and stuff like that, more open spaces. Y'all wouldn't necessarily have a block party, right?
I mean, they had barbecues before. If I'm not mistaken, like they used to have barbecues back in the day. I've seen on movies. So I don't know if that was real life or not.
Yeah, they have cookouts, but we ain't got a block party. That's the whole vibe that needs to migrate from the East Coast.
No, but I'm saying, no. There's a reason why you have block parties, because the neighborhoods, the blocks were smaller, right? So your whole neighborhood would be one block, one street. You block the street off, from other cars coming in. That's why it was called block parties. It's a geographical.
They got small streets in LA. They got small.
Yeah, but y'all have more open space. Y'all have, like you said, Hood Day, right? Or those big cookouts you guys have. So you wouldn't necessarily have a block party in LA. That's all.
But I would say this though, right? Certain areas speaking of LA, you see about LA, places like Palisades or places in the valley, they were like small, or even Woodland Hills. Certain neighborhoods do have what they call block parties for the kids and different things like that. And smaller communities. That's the reason why the people in Palisades is the main thing, because it's a small community and
they hitch their wagon to the wild fantasy. Oh, cosmological option. Okay. Cosmological, relating to the origin and development of the universe. Well, I think Pastor Dan's got it reversed. I think that he chooses to limit himself to only one cosmological